All right, so we are at 1:35 on the dot. Welcome everyone to our first workshop of 2021. It has been a long ride and a very fun run so far with DC Cosplay in quarantine. So really appreciate all of you here, and it's great to see some of your shining faces, once again. So thank you for joining. Today we are going to cover planning a photo shoot, and we have some lovely panelists. And let me go ahead and start introducing all of us. First up, we have Ali Drew of Ali Drew Photography. So Ali, just please tell us about yourself and just give us a little bit information about your background.
I've been shooting, I don't know, since high school in 1979, but right now I specialize in conceptual photography, portraiture. I like to come up with new ideas and then figure out a way to present it. And if that involves wardrobing, or if it involves Photoshop, or if it involves making a set in a studio, whatever it takes, I just try to figure out how to get my concept. And I like to tell stories with my images. So that's pretty much my approach to photography.
Cool. Well, welcome and thank you for being with us. Our next panelist we have is Jason Smith. Jason, if you can just give us a little background and tell us about yourself, please.
Yeah, sure. I'm doing photography for almost a decade now, I think, going on 8 years. I started doing museum photography for the museum that I work for, and then I started doing cosplay photography for about 5-ish years at this point, mainly through this group, going to conventions. And then a couple years ago, I started doing wedding photography because photography is expensive and I need to pay my habits.
Thank you for your honesty. Cool. Thank you, and welcome and thank you for joining us. Yay. Next up is Dan Arango. So Dan, if you can just introduce yourself and give us a little bit of a background.
Yeah, I've been doing photography forever, like Ali back in that not long ago with film, and then when my kid was in high school, I started doing sports photography, shot lacrosse from the sidelines, great fun, get the action shots. And then I started doing a little bit of wildlife stuff, but wanted to really get engaged with people. And so I was so fortunate to find the cosplay group because it ticked a bunch of boxes of doing creative things, hanging out with fellow nerds, and just expanding what I'm trying to do with photography. So that's been very cool.
Very cool. Well, thank you and welcome. And last but certainly not least, we have Sierra. Sierra Roses. She is not a photographer, but she is a cosplayer, and it was great to have a model and a cosplayer also give their perspective. So Sierra, if you can give us, a brief background and tell us about yourself, please.
Sure, yeah. So I've been doing cosplay since 2004, but I've always been involved in the theater community ever since I was really young. I've done makeup throughout the DC Metro area. I've done prop making in the DC Metro area, stage management. I work with a lot of photographers in our group and help to create concepts, and basically I'll be giving kind of that insight of what it's to be the cosplayer on this time.
Cool. Well, thank you and welcome. So thank you all of us for joining us today. I am your moderator. I'm Lena Volkova. Some of you know me as a different name, but please call me Lena. And what I'll be doing is taking everyone's questions that have been pre-submitted. If you have a question that you'd like to ask that you didn't get a chance to submit ahead of time, please use your chat and go ahead and just type the question out there. And Jason and I are both keeping an eye on it, and we'll address the questions and ask them to each one of the panelists, and we'll get everybody's different perspectives and viewpoints. So thank you all for joining us on this, lovely Sunday afternoon. So seeing that all of us have been in this quarantine situation, a lot of us have fallen out of the groove. Some of us are very brand new to doing any sort of like cosplay photography or portraiture photography. So just to slip back into things and trying to remember how things are supposed to be technically, this is a general question for everyone, and we'll just go through the panelists. So you want to do a shoot. How would you approach someone for doing a shoot? So we'll start off with the photographer's perspective, and then we'll finish off with the model perspective. So Ali, if somebody wants to do a shoot with you, just a general shoot, just no concept, no bells and whistles, and they were to approach you, how would you like that person to approach you?
Well, first thing is I want them to approach me with a concept, because that's what I do. So when somebody comes to me and says, I'd like to do a shoot with you, I'm like, okay, what's your concept? That is my first question. And if they say, I don't know, I'll do anything you want, they're probably not going to get a shoot with me. So or they're going to come up with a concept, because I'm a collaborative photographer. I'm not the person that you come to and say, you're the photographer, you do all the work. No, I'm not charging. So there's going to be like, we're going to discuss what you are going to want to do. I'm going to discuss what I'm going to want to do. If I'm interested and you're interested, after that, we start planning. At that point, I'll work with a Pinterest board, try to make sure that we're both on the same page. And then once I understand what we're going to do, my next phase is I start planning my lighting and discussing with the model, what are you planning to wear? What colors are you wearing? What are you doing with your makeup? All of that. So I understand what they're bringing so that I can plan appropriately with my lighting, with my set, with my location. Am I going to be in studio or am I going to be outside? All of that has to go into it. But I will tell you, with me, I want a model to work with me. I am not the person you come to and say, all right, you come up with the idea, because it's just not what I want to do.
Nice. Dan, do you have so how would you approach the same question?
You're on mute, Dan.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. So yeah, if someone just comes out of the blue, yeah, we'll start a conversation, right? Because that's what that's key to making some good art, right? You start the conversation, and maybe there's probably some germ of an idea of what somebody wants to do. So we'll start picking at that a little bit. I recently had someone come to me and say, hey, you know, there's this costume I'm working on, and I want to do a shoot to highlight it for a contest. And so we started talking, right? You just chat on the chat session, and you start working up the idea from its germ to where it's going to go, and it evolves. And then once you have a sense of that, right? Once I get a sense of what the other person's trying to do. So this, like Ali, there are sort of different situations, right? There's where's the idea coming from? As a photographer, am I bringing the vision, or am I bringing the tools that help create the vision that the model or the costumer has, right? And in this case, I was the one providing the tools. The concept was coming from somewhere else. And so after having some initial bit of conversation and learning what the costume was and what the objective of the shoot was, I started practicing a little bit, because that particular style was not something I'm used to. I'm used to big, deep, dark shadows, and this was supposed to be something much brighter. And so I started practicing. And I think I'd like to come back to that topic of practice later, but it starts there with a conversation, defining the vision a little bit, and then identifying from that creative aspect what the technical bits need to be. You don't start with the technical bits; those are tools, and so you start with the creative bits, and all the bits of gear, all the technology is all in service of what you're trying to achieve.
Nice. So yes, definitely we'll come back to that and actually talk about the process a bit more. But Jason, how would you approach the same thing? You know, a model or a cosplayer comes up to you and just like, I want to shoot. So how do you approach it?
Yeah, I think it's more often than not, it's me going to people. Just this is how I work. Also, because I used to live in DC, and no one likes to come into DC unless it's some big event. They're like, you're too far, or I can't park at your place. So more often than not, it's me coming to people to be like, hey, I have a concept, or I want to try some new lighting, or I seen you in this cosplay, so let's shoot that particular cosplay because I want to work on some color gels or some sort of lighting technique. But if someone randomly, I think I can all agree with Ali and Dan. It's just like, all right, what is your concept, and what are some of the details? Like, is it just you? Is it you and multiple people? Is it somewhere that I can get to because I don't have a car? How much lighting, how much equipment do I need to bring? And what time frame are we talking about? Is like, you're talking about like a year from now or like tomorrow? Because there's a big difference. But for me, it really comes down to the details, and like I'll shoot with just about anyone. I don't really care. But like I just need to know the details and know what you're going to do with my product in terms of like the photography, because I've dealt with some models that are like, oh, you didn't edit this the way I like, so I'm going to add filters and stuff and make it look. And I'm like, excuse you? But that's a different tangent for a different day. So as long as we have conversation of like, all right, these are the details, these are our expectations, let's go from there.
I think you bring up a very good point. We'll definitely get back to the whole what happens after a photo shoot, but thank you for reminding me of that. Sarah, now that we have all of the photographer's perspective, so it sounds like when a cosplayer or a model wants to do a shoot, we approach them, we start the conversation. So from the cosplayer model perspective, how would you approach the same question? How would you ask the photographers to shoot with you?
Well, I mean, I always treat any photo shoots kind of almost like a little mini theater production, because that's kind of what we're doing, right? We're bringing costumes, we're bringing makeup, the photographers are bringing lighting and probably backgrounds. And so I think the biggest thing is communication. Like, I think that's what everybody's talked about, is like making sure that your standards are up front, making sure that you're both on the same page, and then really bringing something to the photographer that is probably a little bit unique, not just letting the photographer do, just saying like, oh, well, I have this cosplay and this is, I just want to shoot it. I mean, you have to have an idea of like, where do you want to shoot it at? What are you trying to get out of this? And I generally will have different, unless a photographer is really wanting to stretch themselves, I usually will be like, okay, well, like, Dan, like, let's do something that involves like the whole costume, where Allie like really likes to get up in there and do portraiture work. So like, you kind of have to think about what their style is, so that's usually what I take into consideration.
Perfect. Took the words right out of my mouth. Same thing. So for those that don't know me, I'm also a cosplayer and a model. And same exact thing. You initiate the conversation and you basically set the expectation. So that first conversation gives you an idea of the tone of the photo shoot. But Dan, you said that you had to go back. Jason had triggered a thought. So what were you thinking?
I do. So it's interesting, right? So something Jason mentioned made me think about maybe a goal for when things are a little bit easier to do. And that's the idea of just play, right? Sometimes we get caught up in this idea of turning a shoot into a project. And I love doing that. I love coming up with all the ideas and the concepts and practice and all that. But Jason said something that triggered the idea of just hang out, right? Just couple people hanging out, taking pictures, playing, and it doesn't have to be serious all the time. And I tend to, bring that serious attitude towards everything I do. But I think I want to learn how to play and just hang out. And maybe something comes out, and maybe something doesn't. But you have to know that that's the goal coming in too, right? If you're in play mode and the other person isn't, then there's mismatched expectations.
Oh, definitely. So we've established the beginnings. Sorry, words are hard. English is hard. The beginnings of this conversation between the photographer and the cosplayer or model, and we are planning the shoot. So photographers, what kind of things should a model ask to prepare for a shoot? So what are the type of things that you want for us in order to prepare for the shoot? Dan, since you finished, just go ahead and we'll go first.
Well, some concept of clothing, right? Whether it's a cosplayer or some other kind of fashion shoot or something, some sense of the clothing and then the mood. And so that happens through often. I think Allie was the one who taught me to use a Pinterest board to communicate that. So have the model share, hey, these are some similar things. And that happened recently with that shoot I brought up before. I got some sample pictures and said, oh, okay, that's going to trigger some ideas of what the techniques need to be, the actual problem solving of lighting in studio design and set design to achieve that look. So it starts there. The next thing is, what's the clothing? What's the mood? What's the goal, right? Sometimes the goal is simple. I just want some more content from my Instagram page. Sometimes I'm trying to get I'm trying to submit some costume for a contest, so we have to work on detail shots or construction bits so that people understand what happened there. So it's what are we wearing? What's the mood? Some samples, and what's the end goal? You know, what are we trying to achieve with the picture?
Cool. Yeah, those are some very great points. Jason, we've talked about this on the podcast multiple times, and I know you have some very strong opinions about this. What are your thoughts? Same thing.
I guess the question is, how blunt do I need to be?
Keep it PG.
Yeah, of course. So I think there's multiple things I was thinking of. Always, like, if you have an idea of a location, because like photographers, we do know a lot of locations, but like I'm only one person, and you're probably going to know more places that I've never been to just because of shoot at different places. So always having like, hey, this is a good idea of a location, or having an idea of this is a type of location that would work, because we have there's a list online from some of our local groups, like here's 30 or so photography locations that you can use. So having like some sort of concept in terms of the location, or telling us that, hey, this is the type of background that I'm looking for, we can kind of go from there. So that's like one aspect. And also just, you know, although we're not, depending on the shoot, you're not getting paid, but like look professional. Like I wouldn't go to work, depending on the day, wearing like a really bad shirt. My shoes are everywhere. My socks are, you know, just like come like look professional. Have your makeup done. If you wear makeup, you know, comb your hair, and just like there's things we can do in Photoshop, but the less we have to do in Photoshop, the quicker you're going to get your images, because that just helps us a lot more. And also iron your clothes. Wrinkles are, yes, we can fix it, but those take so long to edit out.
Oh my gosh, yes, so much. Please freaking iron your clothes.
Yep. But there's a ton of other things that you just kind of have to learn with experience. And I guess also like one thing, if you have a question of whether or not this looks good or whether or not I should bring it, just don't be afraid to ask a photographer. Like, hey, because I've had cosplayers just show up with like 20 bags of like clothing and articles, and they're like, I don't know, we're just gonna try them all on. She was a close friend, so I let her do that. But like, no, just heads up, what's going on?
I think we'll come back to that one because that's a very good point on limitations and expectations for a shoot. We'll come back to that. Allie, I know you and I have, shot multiple occasions and we've been on the same page before we go in, but say, for example, hypothetically speaking, I were to go like, hey, Allie, shoot me. What would you like me to bring?
One of the things I find that's very helpful, because mostly when people approach me, it's for cosplay shoots. When I approach people, it's for one of my conceptual shoots. And I want reference images. And what I've had happen is people will ask me to shoot them, and they don't really provide reference images. They just assume I know whatever this character is, and maybe I can Google it. But then they show up, and it turns out in their brain they wanted a composite, but they never told me, and they never shared a reference image. And if I'm going to do a composite, I need to know in advance, because I need to know, okay, what kind of background am I going to use? Do you think I want to sit there and cut out every strand of hair? I don't, and I won't. So I need to know if the composite is going to be on a stormy background, a stormy sky. I'm probably going to shoot you on like a neutral grayish blue background, because this way I can desaturate the blue, and don't really have to cut your hair out at all. I can just blend it all in. If you don't tell me, and I think we're just shooting a set, then I'm going to create a set that I may not be able to cut you out of. And it's happened to me multiple times where people have said after the shoot, but I thought you were going to do a composite. I'm like, you really need to discuss that with me in advance. The other thing that I like people asking me, and this is more when I approach a model for a concept, my best models will say to me, what kind of underwear do you want me to wear? What color should my nails be? Like, what should I do with my hair? Do you want it up? Do you want it down? If I'm the one that's doing the concept, I actually need to work with them on those kinds of things. And believe it or not, I know a lot of you are guy photographers here, but it is important to know what kind of underwear they're going to wear, because some of it's just not going to work. You might not want lines if they're going to wear a really tight dress. So don't be afraid to say, do you have a thong? You know, or you're going to be photoshopping out lines. And, you know.
Yeah, agreed. 1,000% agreed. I'll jump in there from my own experiences as a model. There is a way for male photographers to say, like, hey, do you have a thong, without coming up like the creepy guy with the camera? You know, to say, hey, do you have the proper undergarments for this? Do you have the proper foundational garments? And you can say that. But definitely, because Allie and I have had these conversations before in the past where I'm just like, what color do you want my nails to be? I'll even ask her, what color lipstick am I supposed to wear? And if she goes red, I'm like, what shade of red?
Matte, glossy,
velvet? Do you want it to be a crimson? Is it a scarlet? Is it more of a berry? Like, what shade of red? And she goes, explicit type of red. And I'm like, okay, we'll wear that shade.
Also, I have samples, little tiny samples of all different colors. So if somebody shows up and they don't have the right shade, all you have to have is your little brush and you could do your lips.
And
See, I feel like as a guy, if I had a bunch of lipstick samples, people would start questioning me. I might start questioning myself, like.
No, they wouldn't.
Well, we just know it's because of Deshonda, honestly. But in this day and age, I don't
True.
think anybody's going to question, especially if you're a photographer. No one's going to really be like, ugh, you know. I don't think anyone's thinking they've got a whole Silence of the Lambs thing going on in your apartment, so there's that. But I totally agree with what Allie is saying about your foundational garments. They can make or break the lines of an outfit, so wear the proper undergarments, definitely. Allie, I did want to get back to you because since you're very heavy on concept photography and planning, would you like to go a little bit more into your process specifically about concept planning?
Yeah, I'd love to. So here's the thing. When you're going to get into a concept, and I'm actually in the process now on my YouTube channel. I've got a 4-episode thing going, so people can really see how I plan. I was on Pinterest because I'm bored. I relax by looking at Pinterest, and I see this amazing white feather dress with this red, and it was really a crazy dress, but it was $3,000. And I'm like, I really want to do this look, but I'm not paying $3,000 for this dress. So I decided, okay, I'm going to do a red and white look. And that's the thing. I decide, what is my concept? What do I want to get out of this? I want a creepy red and white goth look. Now I said, it's quarantine time. I have a few pod models. I contact a pod model that's appropriate. I'm not going to ask someone that does princess things for something that I want to look creepy and gothy. You know, I have to pick the right model. So I picked my model friend Liz. And then because it's my shoot, I bought a convertible dress. I bought some stuff and I put together the look on my mannequin. So if you can afford a mannequin, which she was $50, but now they're $100, the mannequin is so useful. She's creepy as can be, but she's really useful. So I put the whole outfit on my mannequin, planned it out. I knew I wanted to do a high key lighting setup. So then I practiced on, her name is Emma. I practice on my mannequin so that I know that when Liz shows up, I'm not wasting her time with, well, I'm not really sure what I want my camera settings to be, and I'm not really sure where my lights should be. I've dialed all that in before she's ever showed up. I dialed it in the week before. If it's a simple shoot that I know, that's one thing. I don't have to do that. But if I'm doing something really important conceptually, I practice. Now, if you don't have a mannequin, before I had the mannequin, I used to use myself in remote control with you could use a remote trigger. They're not great pictures. I'm just looking to see, like, is the lighting right? Is it hitting me where I want? That type of thing. And you could do what Dan does. He uses a basketball and a plant stand or something. I don't know what he's. The point is preparation, communication, and really plan it. Like, you can't overplan these things. And this way, when your model shows up, you put her in place. You might have to do a few tweaks and you guys get shooting. And now your brain is focused on your model and the shoot and not, oh shit, where's my light? What am I going to set that up as? What am I going to do for a background? That's all done. So I'm a hyper planner.
No, that's a very great point because one of the things that tends to pop up on occasions, and I see this in some of the more amateur model forums, is that they're like, "Oh, I did a TFP, so a trade for type for print shoot, and the photographer took like 3 hours to set up, and I was there for like 3 or 4 hours, and we only shot for like 20 minutes." And they're only giving me like 2 photos. I feel like I'm being robbed, and people have some very strong opinions about that. So definitely, from a model perspective, if you as a photographer take the time to really plan out and do things for us to where when I show up, it's just go time, that is so appreciated. We love you so much for doing that because, my time, like your time, is valuable and nobody likes their time wasted. Dan, you were talking about something similar for your planning and, just your preparation work and playing along. And I want to hear more about this basketball. So if you could tell us about your process, please.
Yeah, I don't have a mannequin. I think I may get there. I just find it, I react viscerally to the idea of
Creepy?
a human body somewhere.
It's creepy.
It's creepy. Like if I were to walk down to my basement and there's like some soulless person there, it drives me nuts. But so I use a basketball, and then I've evolved. I put a tribble on top of the basketball to understand how hair is going to behave.
Sorry.
It's fine. I need to
Hasn't
figure out
multiplied yet.
I need to stick a nose on the basketball to see where the nose shadow is going to go, though. That's the one problem with the basketball. So yeah, if someone, so the concept and the concept thoughts are regardless of where they come from. Once that is established, then it comes to okay, what's the preparation to achieve that concept, right? And so some of it is still creative, right? Because you're creating a set, maybe you're providing pieces. You're building things to match the concept. You're creating maybe a background. You're trying to figure out, is it going to be dark? Is it going to be bright? And then you start thinking about lighting. Or if you're doing a location thing, what location is going to suit this concept? And practice. And it's interesting because it was occurring to me the other day that there's lots of fields where practice is a standard thing. If you think about athletes or other sports kind of things, you practice. You go to the gym. You have practice games. People who do sculpture or ceramics, they practice before they make their big piece, or painters. Photographers, you rarely hear or think about photographers practicing. You watch a YouTube video and you think you know how to do something. And it's not fun to sit in a room by yourself necessarily and go, let me take another picture of the basketball with the light moved over here to see if I've achieved something new or if I've learned something new. But you have to. And so different people get motivated to practice from different things. And one is the shoot itself, right? If you've got a concept and you want to achieve it, you say, okay, before the shoot happens, let me practice. Let me see if I can get the lighting that I want. Other people are just much more self-driven that way, and they say, okay, there's this new technique I want to learn, and because I saw it on YouTube, right? And then I'm going to go practice it rather than wait for the shoot to come up and then I'll try it for the first time on the shoot.
Yeah, I think in terms of, because like we're just talking about with the practice, I think our version of practice is years of experience. Like for me, it's like you go from amateur to doing it professional to be like, I'm a 30-year-old vet. With our language, there's really no in between. I'm like, y'all sucked. There was no photographer who was like, I woke up today and I am the best photographer in the world. They might think that. Well, let's be real. No. Just no. I don't care who you are. No, you started somewhere with your little iPhone or whatever, black and white photo. Like, you started somewhere. So again, like Dan was saying, that's how you get better.
Okay, so Jason, jumping on that, how would you approach the same question with planning your concept shoots?
I think it's a combination of, I don't have a mannequin because I used to live in a studio, so that was super creepy because it's just not enough space. I think I might get one now just because my photography lighting skills are not as good as these two, obviously. But like, I just need to practice more. but I kind of take an in between of both what they do in terms of depending on the who I'm working with. I'll probably start with a Pinterest board. Either they're like, here's my cosplay, and I'm like, okay, cool. I'm gonna make a Pinterest board of all these different poses and backgrounds, and let's kind of get some general poses and ideas right there, because it's super easy to just be like, all right, pose like this, and then let me move you around to adjust to my lighting. Then sometimes I'll just be bored and on Pinterest and be like, oh, that's a good idea, that's a good idea, and then I'll put it into general stuff. Like with my wedding photography, what I'll do is it's like, all right, I know I'm shooting, because I mainly do second shooters. I mainly focus on the groom and like the general stuff going on, so I don't shoot like the more important pictures. But I'm also know, just in case I need to shoot the bride and the bridesmaids getting ready, here are a bunch of ideas that I have on my phone that I can pull up really quickly. So it's about prep for me. But sometimes I'll just be like surfing on like a random photography equipment website. I'm not going to sponsor any of them. And I'm like, oh, this looks really cool. This is a really cool object. I want to shoot with it. So I got, I was doing this like a gift exchange, and I got one of those like crystal glass bowls or balls where you can like, it flips things backwards or upside down, so you can shoot with that. So I was like, this is a really cool prop that I can use. Let me just start shooting with people. Haven't shot with people for obvious reasons, aka COVID, but I was like shooting yesterday with it, and I shot my street with ice. Looked really cool. So it's just like coming up with the concepts and then knowing some of my normal model friends, be like, all right, who fits this description the best, and kind of going from there.
Gotcha. All right, so we're going to flip over to the other side of the lens. Sierra, so when we as models and cosplayers are planning our concept shoots with photographers, how do we pre-plan for these things? What's your approach?
I mean, personally, my approach, I think it's funny that I want to kind of circle back to what Dan was saying, practice. So it is important to practice for a photographer, because we do all of our practice before you see us. Like if I want to do a new armor piece, or if I need to make some kind of, corset I've never made before, I'm going to practice. I'm going to make, a toile. I'm going to do a mock-up. I'm going to do something before you see the finished product. So we do all of our practice up front before you see the finished product. And I think that that's really important to remember as a photographer. But I mean, whenever I plan, the first thing I do is make a Pinterest board, because that's usually what I'm going to present to the photographer of, this is my concept. This is what I'll be wearing. This is kind of the mood that I'm going for. It's almost like you're pitching your idea to somebody, like, this is what I'm wanting to do. Are you interested? Do you want to work together? So that's kind of what I do. And then if that's the case, then I do a division of work. Like, I'm willing to make a set for you, or I'm willing to do makeup, or, whenever I do makeup for Dan, the first thing that we do is like, okay, well, who would be great models for this that would be willing to also collaborate, or same thing with Allie. It's the same thing. I do the same thing. Okay, what models would be willing to collaborate and work together and really bring something, not just go buy it from Target, or, but, we want something from scratch. So that's kind of what we're looking for.
Yeah, definitely. And I definitely agree on your points there, because, being prepared and being prepared before you even approach the photographer will get you much further than just going, hey, I want to shoot. What do you want to shoot? I got a concept. Let me do my Pinterest board. What's my look? And then, they're just kind of looking at you like you're insane, and they're just like, why did you just waste my time? But going on that, and I think I'll circle back with you, Sarah, when we are approaching photographers for these shoots, how far in advance do you think is a great idea to schedule? Because I feel like this is one of those things where it's really honestly subjective. It's either there's some people that are just like feel okay with calling someone the night before, and there's some people that be like, no, it's a wedding. I need at least 2 years in advance, and I need your time, and I'm going to send you like 5 save the date cards. So for you and your experience, what do you feel is the most reasonable and at least planning a shoot with a photographer?
I think it depends on the shoot, right? Like if I'm planning this huge elaborate concepts, like whenever we did, like Allie and I did mermaids, we planned that like 3 months in advance because I had to make the models for the molds for, the chest piece. And then everybody had to make their own tails. Allie had to get all the lighting down for the different scenes that we were doing. It's the same thing. Like it depends, I think, how elaborate you're doing your shoot, but like, I think it also depends on the photographer. Like sometimes I'll just be like, hey, I got this really cool thing. Allie, you want to go shoot it? But like sometimes with Dan, I'm like, hey, like, what do you think about this? Are you wanting to like do this? And like, it might take us a couple more months to like flesh stuff out. I think it really just depends on the photographer. But I mean, I would say at least 3 weeks if you're doing something heavily conceptual.
Yeah, totally agree.
Jason, since you volunteered.
I saw something in chat. Before I answer that question, I saw something in chat that someone said about taking pictures of yourself in cosplay as a way to like, hey, this is what I actually look like in the picture. And it kind of helps you adjust, see if you need to do any adjustments before you go to the actual photo shoot. So that's a really good tip for you guys. So it really just depends on the time of the year for me regarding scheduling. Because sometimes I'm like, I'm not doing anything. Otherwise, I have this month booked out because I'm going out and doing stuff, aka I'm social and that's just what I do. Or it's like wedding season. I'm like, I might have one weekend a month where I'm free. But I guess it also depends on like how well you know the photographer. If it's like you go out and have like dinner with them as a friend like 3 or 4 times a month, you can probably like message them and message the photographer in a day or two, and they'll probably schedule something for next week. Versus because
You won't.
I won't. But whatever.
I'm saying this as his bestie. I'd be like, hey, I've got an idea. Let's shoot tomorrow. He's like, no.
Again, if my schedule's free, then yes. But if it's like a random photographer that you don't know or you're like have like met in passing, I would say a minimum of a month, just because they might not know. They'd be like, hey, I'm busy. Like, I know you ish. But I would say realistically anywhere from like a couple weeks to like a month or 2, depending on how crazy it is, would be ideal. Especially if you're not going to pay the photographer. Because if you're paying the photographer, that's a whole nother story. Because I'm like, yeah, we'll do it tomorrow. Okay, here's your photos. But,
We'll circle back to that one. Dan, what is like a good time for you when planning with someone, do you have like a minimum or a maximum?
No, it does come back to the concept, right? Does it take time to prepare? Does it take a lot of time to communicate? Can you get on the phone real quick and just say, hey, I just need a headshot. Okay, let's do a headshot. And so, but more than next day things are tricky because even if the day is open, just to oh, do I have my batteries ready? Oh, did I do I have film? Wait, no, we don't worry about that anymore. But yeah, you just need you need a little bit of time to do that, to do even some basic prep work.
Yeah, definitely. Allie, how about you?
I mean, again, it's pretty much the same as what they were saying. And honestly, I have over 100 Pinterest boards so that sometimes if I just want to pull a concept out of my Pinterest board, then I've got all kinds of ideas ready to go. I did want to make a comment about Pinterest because we've been talking about it a lot. And I think a lot of times people take a Pinterest board literally. It is not. It is a storyboard. It is to get the look and feel. And occasionally I might want to mimic a pose or I might want to mimic the lighting. But I am not, unless it's like when I recently shot Natalie's Wonder Woman, well, okay, we were going for some movie posters. So we went a lot closer to making it look more like the movie poster. But in general, I don't look at a Pinterest board and go, okay, so that woman's pinky is doing that and her face is going that way and there's a tree over there. That's not what it's for. And I wanted to make that clear because I don't know that a lot of people really understand that a Pinterest board is really useful because it gets everybody on the same page. And that's, that's, I just feel like communication and communicating through imagery is one of the best ways to get that, get successful.
Agreed.
Follow up on that, please. That communication, we've been talking about it a lot, but an interesting thing is, and Lena said it earlier, English is hard. And so the language of communication is of creative communication can be difficult, right? Like Ali tossed a couple terms around. She said high key or low key, and not low key.
Low key.
No,
Low key.
Oh,
low key.
Not me. Okay.
And so some of those concepts are technical, and they might not mean something to your model. And sometimes saying something like, I want it moody. Well, what does that mean, moody, right? And so finding that terminology, the common language, can take a little bit to get what you want. And you have to be careful you're not assuming what somebody means, and then you show up and you've got this bright pink background and they wanted, goth. But maybe pink and goth go. I don't know.
You never
They do.
know.
I mean,
They
look at
do.
my headset.
Yeah.
Look
That
at
doesn't
me
mean
and
it
my
goes
headset.
together.
That's
Shut up.
Red and white.
It's thank you, Sierra.
It's a mood. Yeah.
It is totally. It's
Mhm.
pastel goth. Ah.
Mhm. Mhm.
I completely forgot what I was going to ask Dan. Thank you, Jason.
Anytime.
Yes. Oh, yes, but you had a good point. I remembered. So, you brought up a very good point. There is no common dictionary in photography with the exception of the very base key concepts. So when you talk about things like mood is highly subjective. So you brought up a great point, and Jason just illustrated it. You said moody and thinking of goth, and pink might not be goth, and Jason's like, no, pink is not goth, but there might be somebody that might think that pink is totally goth. So yeah, with with the major exception of like the base terminology that we use, because we don't have a common dictionary, it's a good idea to use things and tools like Pinterest so we're on the same page and we have the same type of common ground conceptually. Having said that, we mentioned another term earlier, TFP, so time for print. And Jason, I do want to get back to you on this. So charging photos versus TFP, I know everybody has their own thoughts and views on it, but when would you feel it is appropriate to charge for a photo session versus doing a TFP shoot?
So if you are, so it depends. Like if you know the photographer and you're like, yeah, we're just buddy, I'll buy you a drink later after the shoot. All right, cool. Don't worry about it. But if you're approaching a random photographer that you just don't know, that would probably would be the time where I'm like, hey, I'll give you X amount. Like, what's your hourly rate? Like I normally do time for print, but we haven't worked together. So maybe for the first couple times, do time for print, and then from there we'll do free shoots because we're like friends at that point. But if you're like, oh, hey, I want to shoot me and like 6 other people, and we're going to do this like group photo shoot. No, you're paying me. I'm sorry. Unless I know you. The only time I've done a group photo shoot was when I did Mean Girls a couple years ago. I was like, I know all of them. We're cool. Or it's at a con. Every time else was either at a wedding or at some event where it was like family portraits. I'm like, no, if it's more than 2 people, you're paying me, or you're buying me dinner. And I mean, I don't mean like Taco Bell dinner. I mean like a nice dinner and beer, like a nice dinner. And I think so. If it's the photographer side, should I pay the model or not? For me, it comes down to 2 things for me. I know a lot of models and a lot of photographers. So unless I really like your look or you're like going to be risque, I'm not going to pay you because I can just find someone else. That's just me personally, because I don't have a lot of money to like, just like, hey, I'm going to spend money on models this month. I'm like, that's just not me. That's not who I am. But if you're going for a particular model and they are time for print, or they have a fee and you really want to shoot with them, then yeah, of course I will pay for that. But that's not who I am as a photographer. For me, this is a hobby. This has nothing to do, and for the most part, nothing to do with my career. So I'm not gonna spend a ton of money on models when I have to spend a ton of money on equipment. That's just me personally. I know other photographers, they do that. They're totally different. But I also expect that if I hire you as a model, you better come like you a boss. Like you need to know what you're doing. You need to be makeup, hair, everything needs to be done because this is no longer a fun thing. This is a business transaction. So I just, if I'm paying you, I expect just a little bit more higher quality than just a regular time for print.
Gotcha. Allie, what are your thoughts? Like, when do you think it would be appropriate to charge someone instead of doing time for print?
So I used to have a business and it sucked the joy out of photography. I found that I hate shooting kids, and I was shooting families with kids. I was shooting like these executives that were over controlling. I was miserable. I started to hate photography. So now I've just taken this totally snooty approach to it. The only thing I will charge for is headshots because I actually like headshots. And if you're going to ask me to do a headshot for you that you're going to use on LinkedIn and you're going to use for your career, you can cough up $7,500 and pay me and get your one beautifully professional headshot. Other than that, if somebody I just won't take it. If it's not interesting to me, and I'm sorry, I know I sound like a snob, but if you someone recently wanted to pay me to do an anime boudoir, and it was weird, and I was like, no, because it's no interest. I don't care. And now maybe if they were going to give me $10,000, it might get interesting. But
I kind of want to
said, I've got a job, and I hate my job, so I don't want to hate my photography.
I want to see your Pinterest board for this shoot because this sounds like something insane.
I never had a Pinterest board for that shoot because
I came to her for that.
It says Allie's idea of hell, which is what the board
Exactly.
is.
Yep.
So it's not.
that, and put a little kid in a freaking little wagon, and no, none of that shit.
You
Sorry.
will take money for car though. For cars.
I will. She's right.
Yeah.
If somebody has a really nice car and they want me to shoot it, I will shoot that car and I'll do composites, but I'm going to charge them $200 to $300. So I don't get those very often. And honestly, it's worth the money that I charge because of the way I shoot cars. So I'll shoot cars and headshots for money. The other reason I don't really charge is because I no longer have a business. I don't have liability insurance. I'm a homeowner. I don't want to risk anything. So I just want to have fun.
Totally
Yeah.
fair.
I just want to have fun.
That's a good point of a future subject we can talk about, liability insurance as a photographer or a cosplayer, because that's a whole nother
I feel like that's an
topic.
entirely different word.
Yeah.
It is,
But
it is, but
we'll get
it
back
is.
to that if we can.
Yeah, I was
today.
gonna say.
But,
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying that's another reason I don't charge. That's all.
and actually, I think Sierra could actually run that workshop. She's the SME on that. So, Dan, same question. When do you think it's appropriate to switch from going to TFP to charging for a photo shoot, a session?
After I retire, and because I'm only half kidding, right? Right now, my interests are to do cool things with this community of people, right? And it's not about paying the rent or anything like that. And I haven't gotten to a point where there's some sort of concept I want to do that needs a very particular person. I just want to have fun with my friends doing these things, or even meeting new people through this and expanding my social network through this. So far to me, it's all been about that. So I'm not, at some point though, there may be, some interest in doing something more professionally, but right now I'm just having fun and making art and beautiful things with people I know.
Makes sense.
One last thing.
Okay.
Sorry. I also think it's different regarding charging for a fee if you're just doing a shoot outside of a convention. But if you want like a convention shoot, for a particular photographer, then you should probably pay for them, because they're like, I know when when I was going to cons all the time, like I still had a ton of photo shoots, and people didn't even know I was there. So I know photographers, they wake up at 8, they go to bed at 12, they're shooting that whole entire time. So if you're at a con and you want to shoot with a particular photographer, either offer to pay, offer to give them food, or offer to like bring them snacks. I had models who were at Katsucon, and she just like, here's a big ass bag of cookies. I was like, yep. And then another one was like, here's a big ass chocolate rabbit. I was like, yep, we're good. And they got their photos first. Just like.
I work for coffee.
I was gonna say, or like if they bring you lunch and stuff, I mean, I feel like that's really helpful too, especially whenever you're doing something like Katsucon or any big con where it's like you don't have time because you're going from shoot to shoot to shoot, and that model brings you lunch. Just saying, that's a way in.
Yeah, we'll definitely remember that.
And I will also say from my own experiences, doing TFP shoots with photographers, I will always either get you lunch or dinner, whatever you want. Because you're taking your time out of your busy schedule to work with me, and I'm happy to feed you at the very least. So Sierra, a very similar question to the photographers. However, it's a little bit different for cosplayers in that, especially those of us that have a modeling background, some of us are paid by the photographers to do particular shoots, and other times we pay the photographers. So in your situation, or actually just in general, not your situation, sorry, back up. In general, when do you feel like it would be appropriate to pay a photographer for a shoot? And then also as a follow-up, when do you think it would be appropriate for a photographer to pay you for a shoot?
So I think it's appropriate to pay a photographer whenever I know that they're adding something to my portfolio. Especially if, like, I know I'm a makeup artist, so I keep referencing this as well, but like, especially makeup, if I am looking for a certain like high key look, or like if I know somebody that's like, for example, there's a makeup artist, Jordan Liberty. I absolutely love him. He does makeup for MAC and all kinds of stuff. He has a high key that a lot of people can't get that's still very natural. If I knew a makeup artist or a photographer, that could do that look, 100% I would pay them. But, whenever it's a model thing, like if I know that I'm adding something, or if I'm building a relationship, like if I, for example, was a cosplayer that, let's say I wanted to, make it big in cosplay, whatever that means nowadays. If I wanted to make it big and I knew like, let's say Martin Wong, who's really famous, maybe I want to shoot with him. Absolutely, pay that photographer, because that is adding something to my portfolio and I'm making a relationship as well. Like, okay, now you know me. The opposite, I mean, for me, this is my hobby. This is something that I love to do. I don't charge anybody unless I'm doing makeup stuff. And that's purely because it's resources for me. It's difficult. And a lot of the time, photographers don't know how to shoot with prosthetics. They don't know how to shoot makeup. They don't know, so they're learning something new. But as a model, I generally don't charge anybody. So.
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
Piggybacking on what you said, absolutely. If there is a high name photographer out there in the con scene, I am happy to pay them for their time. If it's somebody that I have a pre-existing relationship with, I can name a couple of names, but I'm not going to do that. I will buy them food. I will offer to give them snacks. I will offer to at least tip them. They might not want to charge, necessarily for the shoot, but I'm like, here's some fun money that you can have for the con, hope this buys you lunch or whatever. I will always offer to do that.
100%.
Never be afraid to offer to pay, because keep in mind that this is somebody's free time and their skills that they're offering for you for free. So it's not really something that you're getting for free. You're still getting value out of this. So don't be like, and this is kind of me in my personal soapbox, where it kind of grinds my gears when I have other cosplayers are just like, well, I don't do anything other than paid. I don't do TFP. Just like, you have to pay me. And I'm just like, no.
You're not special.
No, you're not. You're not. Even Yaya Han pays
right. Exactly.
Yeah.
I was just about to say that. Even Yaya Han pays people. There are lots of famous cosplayers that still pay people. I just think that especially at a con, I think that it is courtesy to pay that person for their time. If that is their, part-time, that's their part-time job or their
Yeah.
full-time job. That's, you want to be paid for your time. So I think it's
Totally.
rude not to. So
And then on the flip side of that, we have other people that are just like, I only do TFP. It's like, well, good for
Yeah.
you, but recognize that you're going to limit yourself severely if you will not work with anybody that, wants to be paid.
yeah.
As a professional model, there is a fee structure. So it depends, like Sierra, like on what we're doing. Is somebody learning? Is this educational? I won't charge them. But if I were to take the same exact structure that I would, with my professional rates, it depends on if you're at the same level as me. So if you're, entry photographer, I should be charging you. But if you're learning, I'm not going to do that because I want you to learn and get better. If you're at the same level as me, we can negotiate. If you're higher than me, I should be paying you. So that's kind of how it goes. But I did want to at least mention that, bring that to y'all's attention. We do have time for a couple more questions before we open up the floor for general questions. And one of the things that I did definitely want to bring up, and Allie, you brought up a great point earlier, was when won't you shoot a concept? When will you just not shoot a thing? And is it ever personal? So Allie, if you would start, that'd be great.
I know what you're going to say.
No, I mean, I have had times where I've turned down shoots, and the concepts are things that basically they're boring to me. It doesn't mean they're a boring concept. It's not something that I want to spend my time on. I'm not going to sit here and tell you the things I don't like. It's just, because somebody here could love that thing. But there are things that I just don't resonate with. I will tell you, if somebody comes to me and says, maybe I'm not a total cosplay photographer, but if somebody comes to me and says, like Natalie, when she said, I have the Wonder Woman 1984 thing, I almost would have broken a leg to get to shoot that. I was like, I have to shoot that. I've Wonder Woman's been my favorite since she was invented. But there are some things that maybe they're trendy, but I don't understand them. I'm old, older than most of the cosplayers. And if it's not interesting, I just don't want to shoot it. The other thing, I'm on Instagram and I'll check someone's Instagram page. And if somebody approaches me and I see that they're just boring, they're just not even giving the camera anything. As a model, I know I'm being honest, look at Sierra's face, but you could see it. You could see it when somebody is engaging with the camera and trying, and I'm not talking about inexperience, I'm talking about engaging with the photographer and the person that stands there and says, the photographer, make me look pretty. If I see that, I don't want to shoot with you because you're not going to collaborate. You're not going to work with me. And I've had those people behind the camera in the early days, and it was not good work. It wasn't fun. I would just sit there going, am I boring this person? And so then I start feeling bad about myself. So these are the things that I've just learned over the years. Don't shoot it. Just don't shoot that because you're not going to enjoy it. Does that make sense?
Totally. Totally. And I think you bring up a very good point. Is it personal? No.
It's not personal.
I mean,
Jason, okay,
It's
since you've
good.
got strong opinions, why don't you go?
I know, because I'm also the type of person that if you're an asshole to my friends, I'm never going to shoot you. No cap, no disrespect. If you're an asshole to people I know, I'm not going to deal with you.
I'm not going to work with you.
Because we talk, period. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. Photographers talk. There's certain models that I just oh yeah, I remember you. Mm-hmm.
I usually give people 3 chances.
Unless they're a diva.
Yes.
Ooh.
If somebody's a diva.
Unless I get told, oh, I've never heard of you. Oh, now I'm never working with you ever again.
Or
Yep.
a person that I
Yep.
shoot them and they go, wait, can we just shoot for 20 more shots? Just shoot for a little bit longer. When I say we're done, we're done. I'm tired. I've got, editing.
And I think,
Sorry.
Allie,
Yeah,
you brought
we
up a
didn't
good point about checking out people's their social media accounts of because I was oh yeah, that's something that I don't really do that often, but I'm oh, that's a smart thing to do just in case their style doesn't match up with your style. But I've also had some of my photographers, or some of my model friends, just hey, I really have this one concept, and the concept, like it was like a mafia style cosplay, but she wanted to use like a real weapon in the shoot. And like I know her personally, she does have training on that, but I'm also like, you know what? Because of where I work and all that stuff, and I work in education, that's probably not something I want with my brand. Just because like you never know who's watching my stuff. So we didn't do that stuff for a number of reasons, anyways. But like those would be some of the things we're like, yeah, nah, I won't do it, but I know photographers who will.
That's a good point, definitely, with the branding and everything else, because, you know, if I'm approached by somebody that I haven't shot with before, I am checking your Instagram account and I'm looking for your portfolios. And if your portfolio consists of every single shot is like a half naked woman or a naked woman, I'm not shooting with you. Sorry, not good for my brand, and it's something that I just don't really do. But if it's something along the lines of, you know, you've got a, you know, mix of different things and different styles, and I like it, I'll shoot with you. Dan, how about you?
Um, I think it's similar to what the others have said about connection, about whether or not we can establish connection, and that's for people you've already met before, right? You know, did you have an experience with them that led you to know whether you can really come together for a particular thing? There are things if the shoot is going to go in a direction which grows both of us as artists, that's important. That's important to do, that we're both growing in some direction. Otherwise, we start heading into the maybe I should get paid for this arena, right? And so it's about growth, common interest, and also. You know, we're all coming off as these seasoned masters and professionals. There's a level of confidence. Sometimes somebody might come at me with a concept that is like so huge, it's like, I don't know that I can pull off, you know, 18 drones flying in the air behind you spelling out your name, right? I don't know, I just made that one up. But you also have to, you know, along with growth and the idea that you might not succeed because you're growing a little bit, you have to know your own limits. To is that a Harry whose line was that? A man's got to know his limitations. Was that Dirty Harry?
Harry Potter.
No,
That's before my time.
What you said, is that Harry Potter?
I think what you're saying, Dan, is you need to know your worth.
Yes.
You need to know what your time, your worth is. It's really important, especially whenever you're working with fellow creatives and trying to expand, you know, it might just be, in our case, it might just be expand your friend circle, right? Mm-hmm. It might just be what it is. So, but knowing your worth is still important in that scenario.
Yeah, totally. So, Sierra, same question. We're going through everyone in this one.
I don't know. I think basically what everybody was saying was kind of what I was, you know, thinking. So especially Allie and I have the same mindset about this. So people, this is like, I think that's why I love this community so much, is because it's exactly like a theater community. We're theater in a different way. We're, you know, theater in a totally different way, but it is still theater. We are still theatrical in a sense. We're very creative and we put on a show, and, you know, we present that in a photograph instead of on stage.
Yeah.
That's what I love about it. So, that's how I take it. But basically I'm in the sense that Allie is, I will work with almost anybody. I don't want to work with a diva. I don't want to work with people who are mean. So.
Sure. And you do bring up a very good point, and for those that are not as familiar with the community, definitely there are a lot of theater people that do cosplay, and it is not surprising. But going back to something that we brought up a little bit earlier, Sarah and Allie, it seems like both of you had very strong experiences in the past with shoots, and it's very unfortunate that it happened. But Sarah, I'm going to direct this question at you. What is your big deal breaker that says, I will not work with you?
Like ever again?
Like ever. It could be an ever again, or it could just be like, I heard, you know, from a trusted source that you did X, Y, and Z. For you, what would your deal breaker be? Assuming it's not criminal.
Yeah. I mean, assault is the big one, right? Like, I don't want to work somebody who's like known as a creeper. I think my biggest deal breaker is like honestly just people acting like a diva. Like I don't want to have to deal with that. You know, especially I'm not getting paid. Nobody is paying me. So I want to have a good time. I want to have fun. I want the whole process to be fun. I want the start where we're planning to the shoot, to the background, to everything. I like the whole experience because I'm a theater nerd. So I like that whole experience of everything. And if I'm not having fun that entire time, I fuck that. I don't want to work with you again. So, but I mean, I think the biggest experience that I've had is somebody, telling me like, oh, well, you've been cosplaying for this long. I don't know who you are. Yeah, because I do this for fun. I don't do this to be famous. You know how much percentage of people do this that are famous? It's like less than 2%. Good luck with that.
But
I
even
can
then,
think of
they're not
two.
even famous.
Right.
So
Like I don't want to, like, that's not my goal here. My goal is to make pretty things for me and fuck anything else. Sorry.
totally fair.
But, yeah.
Totally fair. Allie, can you jump in? Are your dogs okay?
Yeah, they're quiet now. The
Okay,
kids
cool.
just won't shut up
Somebody
today.
must have rung a doorbell.
No, there was a figment. One of them has gotten a little demented, so she barks at shadows. Anyway, definitely. So I'm going to give an example without any names, but I had a shoot with somebody that was doing a cosplay that showed up with half her makeup done, saying I could either Photoshop the other side or, just don't shoot that side that wasn't done, because she was just tired of doing her makeup. She's never getting shot by me again. Because to me, that was really disrespectful. I'm like, you asked me to do the shoot, and then you didn't put the time into it that I put into my side.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, that was a deal breaker. And so, I'll give people a shot. I'll shoot them. But, when you do something like that, it's like I've had people's costumes fall apart and I'll still shoot them again. So I'm not looking for perfection here.
Right. That's why I like to give people at least 3 chances. Like,
I do too, until you do that.
Maybe you were having a shitty day that day. Maybe you overexerted yourself, or maybe you, right? Like maybe you we're people, we have bad days. That's okay.
Right.
But if that happens 3 times in a row, I'm kind of like, maybe you're just not prepared.
Yeah.
Maybe that's your style.
And then the diva thing, definitely. I've only experienced the diva thing once, and it wasn't pleasant, and I felt used at the end of the shoot. I know that now, and I just won't deal with it. There's certain personality types that just I'm not going to deal with. Because I give literally so much to a photo shoot. I don't even do many, even when there's no COVID, because I want to give like professional quality, the best images I can. So I don't overbook myself. And so when I take the time to do someone's shoot, I expect them to be giving me that same respect back. You don't do that. Sorry, it's harsh. I know. I'm a New Yorker.
No, totally fair. Totally fair. That forward and very, very blunt way of communicating is not a bad thing. And it's good that direct way of communicating is actually not a bad thing. So kudos to you. Dan, how about you? What would be your deal breaker? What would, make you just go, I am not working with this person ever?
When you start getting treated like you're being hired, but you didn't actually get hired. Right, we were talking about the whole TFP versus hiring before, right? And maybe that's what people mean by the word diva, but I mostly think in terms of if you're being treated like you got hired to do a job, and you've got those kinds of expectations on somebody's applying those expectations on me of how soon I'm going to get the picture, how many am I going to get, that breaks the whole thing, right? And that's I'm not going to do that anymore, because my expectation is that we're the parties are all trying together to improve their craft in some way and make something kind of cool together and collaboratively. So when it starts getting lopsided, that's the place where I start breaking off.
Totally agreed. And Jason, I know you've got some very strong opinions on this.
The question is, I'm pretty sure we did multiple episodes already about this.
We
okay, where to start? Take a bath. I did a shoot with a photo shoot at someone at a con, and she smelled like booty. Not doing that again. If you have a, sorry guys, if you have a, so it's one thing if you're like, oh, I didn't have enough time to do to finish this costume. Okay, cool. Now, if it's the third time you said that same excuse, you getting yeeted out of here. I don't have time for that. And like, I do this for fun. So if you can't, like, it's one thing to be like, oh, I couldn't finish it in time. Let's shoot something else. Cool, got it. But then to be like, we're still shooting this half done cosplay. I'm like, no. And it's also just like, show up on time. Like, I know I'm early. I'm either early or right on time. And if you don't, like, if you're texting me, like, if you don't text me that you're running late, no, I don't play around with schedule. And if we're at a convention and you decide to show up with 3 other people and want me to take pictures of all 3 people, that's not happening. That's a one-time, you don't do that, period. And if you do that once, you're getting X'd out. I don't care. I don't, like, it's fun if they're there. And if I like their costume and I approach them to be like, hey, do y'all want to do like a group shoot? Cool. But don't expect that because they show up, we're shooting everyone. Like, no, I scheduled it for like 15 to 20 minutes to shoot you and only you and to get your lighting down, not to do a whole group shot. Because if depending on my lighting setup, I might only have 1 light or 2 lights max for this person. When you're talking about a group, you need a whole different type of setup for a group shot. And I'm not going to carry that equipment around. No. There's a ton more of other things that are my like.
Right. And we'll say that for the podcast. So
Yeah.
for I know I keep mentioning this, but Jason and I do a podcast known as the Cosplay Cast, and we actually talk about this sort of thing, on a semi-regular basis. You did bring up the whole concept of group photo shoots. We are not going to touch on that today because that is an entirely different beast that could be dedicated to an entirely different workshop because there are all sorts of logistics that go into a group shot that are different than individuals. And so today we'll just focus on individual. So I guess all of us can agree that basically showing, common decency, some basic respect for each other, communicating, whether or not things happen, because, things do happen. And I guess adhering to basic hygiene are very important principles in ensuring that you'll be shot again in the future or you'll have a working
Just
relationship.
that simple. Put on
Okay.
some deodorant.
I mean, that's great. So we're running low on time, so we'll have 2 final questions, and then we'll open up to the floor. So this big one, I think this was actually a really good one since we did pretty much cover all of our bases and how to plan and, the relationship between a cosplayer and model and a photographer. But how can we help other cosplayers achieve their goals? Jason, I'll start with you since I had you last. Yeah.
That's a good question. I guess it comes down to like, again, we're kind of repeating the same things, but it's like communication. And it could be in terms of like, I have this concept, but I'm missing some pieces from the concept. And knowing at least the photographers and models, cosplayers here, like we might know someone who can 3D print that particular prop that you need. But if you don't tell us that, we don't know. I mean, we might be like, because I've heard this on many of my group chats, like, oh, I have all this fabric I need to get rid of. And I have this photographer or a model's like, hey, I really need this type of fabric. Okay, now I'm gonna hook you 2 up together. And it's stuff like that where it's just like use the resources of your community to improve yourself. Like my photography when I first started in this group was, I saw my first picture from our first event and I was like, sorry, I had to do that. That's how bad it was. But then you go and like talking to Allie, talking to Drew, talking to all the photographers that have been through this community since we've since Sarah started it, you're like, oh yeah, this is how I get better. This is how I do this. Here's a book, here's a PDF, blah, 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 let's go shoot. And then it's like night and day. You would think it was two different people shooting. Just talking and being friends, because there's this, like, if you're nice to people, they will help you out. And if they're not, find someone else. But yeah, the information's out there. You just gotta like be friendly to people and and they'll be welcoming back.
Yeah, definitely. Sierra, I see you totally vibing with what Jason says. Do you have anything to add to that?
I don't think so. I mean, I agree with what he's saying. Like, really, this community is very big. So if there's somebody that you're like, this is the only person I know and I don't really vibe with them, there's somebody else out there that's gonna like your version of whatever you like. Like if you like dark horror, weird crap like I do, you're gonna find somebody. Like there is somebody that fits every little niche of our community, and that's what makes our community so great. So
Totally. Allie, do you have any additional thoughts to add to that?
Yeah. So as a photographer, I think something that I've tried to give all of my models is feedback, because even like my most experienced models may not understand how they're coming through on the camera. So I'm always telling them like, okay, I need your face to go in this way. I need your eyeballs to come to me. I need your nose to go over there. I need your pinky to go over here. But all this micro posing that I do with people will actually bring out a lot better image, and it teaches them. So we get that connection going. Models that I've worked with a lot, like Sierra, I could just kind of go, and she does it because she knows. It's like weird. I could just grunt and she kind of understands.
That's when she takes off her hair thing, right?
Yeah. So, but the other thing is show your models the back of that camera and explain to them, like, I'll purposely take a bad shot and then I'll correct it. And then I'll say, look, we went from here to here. Do you see why I had you move your eyeballs? Do you see why I had you move your head? Because I wanted a specific lighting pattern. Do you see how you got a shadow here now, but you had a really ugly shadow before? So I don't want them to feel bad about themselves. I build them up. And one last thing I do to make sure, if my models are nervous or if something happens, they run late for a photo shoot, shit happens, I know that. I will never, ever, ever berate a model, yell at a model, and tell them that I'm, even if I'm stressed out about the lighting, I will not tell them. I want to instill confidence in them and just say, it's fine. Things happen to everybody. Let's get to the project. Let's get to shooting, because you need to bring out the best in your model. And whether it's a cosplayer or whatever kind of model, you need to build them up, bring out the best, and really work with them and just help them. They don't know, even if they just don't always know what's going on. So help them.
Totally agreed. Dan, follow up to that. Do you have?
Sure. Two thoughts. One is one that Allie has done with me, and I need to learn how to do that with others, and that's to push people gently out of their comfort zone. And because that's been helpful for me, right? We went somewhere and she said, Dan, you're only shooting with hard light today. And I said, I'm going to do what? Right?
I remember that shoot. Yes.
And I did it. And I'm not great at that with other people because I don't like making people uncomfortable, but I think I'll try to learn how to do that. And the other thing is that feedback and trying to find out as soon as you're working with someone where they are looking for improvement. I did martial arts for many years, and I went to a school. I was blessed that I went to a school where the instructors were not strict curriculum type instructors. And I learned from their experience and how they taught me how to teach, right? And they would watch during warm-ups how somebody was doing something. And then that's the lesson for today, right? That's the lesson for today because they found something that wasn't quite right. And I try to do that when I'm in a shoot is quite quickly identify what isn't this person doing that's causing them to be able to really bring that character to life. And so you try to identify that quickly, and then you help them carry that emotion or that attitude out a little bit more easily.
Very cool. Yes, totally agree. Absolutely agree. So our final question for today, Dan, I'm going to go ahead and direct it to you specifically. Where can I find more cosplayers to shoot?
Where can I find more? Well, this group, once we get going again, and we have live events, you'll be able to come to an event and start networking with us in person.
What's the name of the group?
DC, well, come on, DC Cosplay Photoshoots. I put a link in also to our friend Angela's other group that is more about just generally cons and cosplay, trying to get people involved in that. Those are the main places I'm aware of. You know, we aren't right now because, you know, we have this sort of formal way of hosting our own events. We're not publishing calls for shoots in our own group because we're trying to set an example. People can make their own choices, and they do. And I've done a couple shoots. I've found ways to do that. But we're trying not to facilitate too much right now. But you know, I think maybe by this summer we'll be able to start hosting things again. We'll meet again. I can't remember what our next meeting is, but we'll meet
Next month.
Talk about when to open up again. But in the meantime, start practicing.
Yeah, definitely use the resources that you have at hand. The group, like Dan said, is an invaluable resource. Other place to shoot cosplayers are at cons, but right now cons aren't happening. So, you know, network, connect, make friends, and, you know, we're all here for each other to grow and to learn. So that was it for our panel group. Opening up questions to the floor. You know, if y'all have a question, feel free to pipe in. I don't see the hand raising thing here, so I'm just not even going to bother with that. So, you know, if you have a question, please feel free to ask.
Hey, how's it going, y'all?
Hey.
I guess I could unmute now. But yeah, my name's Carl, and hey, I appreciate all the information. I've been a photographer for about a decade now, and like I said, I got into cosplay. I was randomly at the National Harbor because I live right here at a Katsucon. And I bought a ticket and I went in, and I had my camera with me, took a bunch of pictures, and then I saw some of the stuff other people were doing. And so I'm really trying to get into this. Just so happens that I just bought a home in Bowie, and I have a 1,400 square foot annex in the back that I'm turning into a studio. I know, right? It's amazing. Right. It's like, oh wow, this is it. This is why I bought it. So any suggestions on what type of lighting and whatever to put in there? I don't know if this is the right thing for it, but you know, just out of curiosity, because I really want to do this, because like I've seen these composites that y'all are doing. It's like, man, I have to do this.
Yeah, so for me, it's what can you afford? What can I afford to put in here? Because I did one shoot where I just made a bunch of clouds out of like cotton balls and some lanterns. I just glued it all together. It was maybe like $10, and it looked great. So it's more about how, like, set a budget and go around on Pinterest or on YouTube. Like, what are some photography prop ideas? Cool. Yeah. Going there and then just be like, all right, I can afford this, but like, don't ever think you need to buy everything at once. No, that's just not realistic unless you like Bill Gates status and money. And also you got to remember, like, I'm gonna buy this, and then I also need time to work with that, to master that. So, you know, just a little bit of every day, and then all of a sudden you have a massive studio.
Great. Yeah, when it comes to lighting gear, again, it's about problem solving, right? You know, you have to think in terms of, because I want a shot to look this way, I need a light that behaves, you know, a certain way. And again, yeah, it's, you know, build up over time. One light, one umbrella, and a plain background, and then you add things, because you'll realize, oh, I did some pretty cool things and they look great, but now I need to get another light to separate the person, or to really introduce mood, I need to have some smoke going on in the background, so I'll get a smoke machine or a can of smoke. So it's all about problem solving. And that's why, once we get going again and you can start networking with people and you start thinking about concepts, it's the concept that drives the gear. And that's why sometimes some of these things take some planning time, because two things, right? You got to think about what gear you need to support the concept. You need to source the gear, whether it's lighting gear or photo gear or props or whatnot. And then you need time, as Jason said, to practice and master how to use it before you actually come to the shoot. So let the problem drive the solution. I work in engineering, and sometimes we sadly have people who have solutions looking for problems, and that's just wasting a lot of people's time and money.
Yeah, and I think in terms of photography equipment, a lot of us actually, not a lot of us, but a number of us actually have the same lighting equipment. And it was because Dan or Robert's another admin, he was like, hey, I got this light. You want to come check it out? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, I don't need to buy anymore. Brad too, same thing. We all have the same equipment, because when you come to our events, some of us are like, hey, check this out. Use this light. Use this. But also, like, I can, like, all of these people that I'm borrowing this equipment from are my friends. So, like, when we have events, to show up, and you never know who's willing to let you borrow some equipment for a shoot. I'm not gonna say we're all gonna do that, because we're not, but, like, you never know. It's worth asking.
I get it. Yeah. No, I get it. Thanks. I appreciate
Very
it.
true. Allie had pointed out that she does have her YouTube channel where she does talk about, small studio setups. She actually has her entire basement like tricked out as a studio, which is amazing.
Yes.
My husband still keeps trying to say it's part of the house, but
My wife says the same thing. I'm like, nah.
the other thing I was going to
No.
say, and I refocused my channel to DIY solutions, and I actually have come, and the reason I've done it is because a lot of us don't want to spend a lot of money. So when I recently did a high key shoot, my lighting modifiers were a sheet and a shower curtain. So you don't have to sit there and go, oh, well, if I want to do high key, I got to buy a 27-inch modifier, and it's going to cost me $200. Think about, do I need a big light source? Well, how else can I make a big light source so that I can see what it's like? How can I use my reflectors so that I don't have to have, so I only have one light, but maybe I can bounce some light back with the silver side of a reflector. And that's when the mannequin is really nice, because you just sit in there with your creepy ass mannequin and, you try stuff. Which, by the way, my mannequin scared my friend's 5-year-old child, and she scared my dog Daisy when we first brought her home too. So she is scary, but she works.
She's creepy as shit.
She's
Okay.
creepy.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have any other questions? Because we're running low on time, and I think we could take like one or two more before we gotta call it. Bueller?
Well, I'll ask Allison if she could post a link to her Pinterest, because I already.
Oh, I think I'll find it. I think I'm Allison D on Pinterest. I'll find it. There's a
Okay.
lot of boards.
I'm with it.
Alrighty. So
That's there
to
somewhere.
before we wrap up, I do want to mention a couple of things. One, thank you everyone for being here, and two, thank you all of the panelists for your insights, your experiences, and for sharing with us today. So that way, we can still have these workshops despite COVID, and we can still share and do these educational events. Hopefully, things get better soon in the DMV, and we can actually start doing more face-to-face meetings and actually shoot again. So really looking forward to that. Looking forward to seeing you guys again in person. Next month's workshop actually is going to cover something a little bit different. It's going to be more cosplay oriented, and it'll be cosplay organization. So how to not being a basement dwelling gremlin with piles and piles of stuff. So
Sounds
that's
like
don't call me out when I'm calling myself out, Jason. But it's organization is one of those things that is key towards being a lot less stressed out in this process. So I'm actually in the process right now of redoing my entire basement and organizing things. So I'm happy to share tips and tricks and go the whole Marie Kondo approach or the Swedish death cleaning approach, depending on, what perspective you want to take. And so happy to join you all next month. We'll send out links and signups for that soon. For everybody that joined us today, thank you so much for your time and attention. We really look forward to talking to you all soon. Thank you again.
Rachel, I just want to thank you for moderating.
Yes.
Of course.
Yes.
It's
a great
beautiful
job.
Thank you very much for keeping us on track.
Yes.
Of course. Thank you. I'm going to stop the recording now.